Hi everyone, welcome back to Feather Stitch House. My name's Rebecca and each week on this channel I make videos about embroidery and textile art to help you get creative. We're in week 9 of our Winging It project for 2025. This year we are doing a project called Pick of the Pots. Each week I pick out of my 3 plant pots. One contains colours, one contains stitches and the other one contains shapes, and we use our picks to create a piece of improvised textile art. I do have a second project running over on Ko-fi. There is a link in the description below. It's called Postcards from the Hedge. It's a little bit more in depth, lots more technical textile art skills. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, do click that link and check out the different subscription tiers. It starts at £4 a month and it is really good value. You get 4 or 5 long videos each month showing you the whole process to make a textile art postcard based on something from the natural world. So it's time for us to find out what we're going to be doing this week. So I'm going to head into my studio and let's get picking. Okay, here we are for another pick. So I'm going to start the stopwatch. I'm sorry it's so bright. It's gone on to day mode and I've no idea why or how to turn it back. So sorry if it's a bit dazzling, but let's go for our colour pot. What colour do we have? Aqua. Oh, please be a good shape. Aqua is our colour, so that you can take that literally or think about water. Footprint. Oh my goodness, how is that going to work? Right. Footprint. I think I've got an idea. And eyelet. Oh, that might work quite nicely. Right, eyelet's quite a technical stitch, so I will demonstrate that and then we will get stitching. So let's move our pots out of the way. So we've got aqua, footprint and eyelet. So I wonder what we are going to come up with this week. I'm going to go away, have a think, I'll demonstrate the stitch and then we'll create something. I'll see you in a minute. Right, let's start by demonstrating the stitch. I'm not working in my hoop today, I'm working on a piece of felt, largely because this is a stitch that you can't unpick and it's going to be permanent on my fabric and I don't want to waste a whole hoop's worth. It will work the same on fabric as it will on felt, and you are going to need some tools for this one. So I've got a circle template. Just a circle to draw around would help. I wouldn't start with anything too enormous, but just something small and round. You also need a tool to poke a hole. So I've got an awl here, but I've also got a chopstick, and in a pinch you can use a pencil, so don't panic if you don't have an awl, just anything to poke a hole. The end of a paintbrush would do as well. So we're going to start off by drawing a circle. I'm going to do quite a big one so that you can see the effect, but you can make these very small. So I've drawn a circle that's about a 1 centimetre circle, and we're going to make an eyelet stitch. So this is going to be a hole eventually, so this is a permanent stitch. We're going to cut some of the fabric away and you're going to be able to see through the fabric. So it sounds really technical, it's actually very simple. You just need to practice your tension and try and keep your stitches even, but we've already done satin stitch, so we've had a bit of a head start. So I've got some aqua thread here. I've knotted it on the back and pulled it through. And the first thing I need to do is back stitch around that hole. So I've gone back on myself to make my first stitch, and now I'm going to come forward a stitch length, so there's a gap between the end of that first stitch and where my needle's coming out. So that's our arrangement. Now I go back to the end of that first stitch. And then I go forward a stitch length again and back to the end of the previous stitch. And we're just going to work our way around the circle like that. So this is a 2-stage stitch. Now I'm working on felt, which is much more forgiving because it's not going to fray. But if you're working on fabric, this is a really important step because it's going to stabilise the fabric a little bit and prevent your fabric fraying excessively. If you've got very fragile fabric, so fabric that frays really easily, you want to make these stitches very small. So err on the side of caution. You could even go half the length of these stitches. These are about 3mm long, so you could do really tiny stitches if your fabric is particularly fragile. So I'm going to leave that thread attached and move it out of the way. I just need to keep an eye on where it is because I don't want to accidentally cut it. So I know it's coming straight down. I tend to always put my thread in the same place so that I always know where it's going to be. So this is the scary bit. We're going to take our scissors. You need some scissors that are sharp to the point, and we're going to cut away that fabric. Now I'm doing this because the hole is very big. If you're doing a small hole, you can do it with an awl or a pencil or a paintbrush. So just keeping track of where my thread is so that I don't cut it. You want to go near to the stitches but not so close that we're in danger of cutting the stitches. Like that. So we've now got a hole in our fabric. There's no going back. So I just want to find where my thread is resting, and what we're going to do is bind the edge of that hole now. Now I find it easier to come up through the hole and go down on the other side of that back stitch. You want to tuck your needle really close in to those back stitches. That's going to help you get an even finish. And the tighter you pull, the closer your hole opening is going to be to that line of stitches. So all we're going to do is work our way around. So it's a kind of satin stitch, but we're running it over the edge of our hole. We're just going to lay lots of little stitches right next to each other. So you just move a little distance around each time. It doesn't have to be perfect, particularly if you're working on felt, because felt won't fray. But we're just going to rotate around that ring, making tiny little stitches that come up through the hole and tuck in just on the other side of those back stitches. Now I've just got to the bit where my knot is, and you can use your stitches to hold that knot in place. So I'm stitching over that knot, or I will when I get there, and that will stop the tuft on the end of the knot from poking through the hole and making it look untidy. So it does take a little bit of time. It's obviously quicker with a smaller hole. You just need to take care to position your needle. When you've come through the hole, you just need to take care to position your needle right next to the previous stitch, and that will make a really secure binding around your raw edge there. Now, when you're almost back to the beginning, don't be tempted to stop too soon. You probably always need one more stitch than you think you do, just to make that close up really tightly, and that's essentially it. So to finish off your thread on the back, you just want to slide your needle under some of the stitches you've made and then trim it off really close. And that's an eyelet. They're really useful. They add lovely dimension. You can make your hole more round if you want to. I've just got my chopstick there, just swirling it around to make it more circular. And yeah, you can put fabric behind it, so you can have fabric showing through. You can have whatever surface you're laying your eyelet on showing through. You can leave it as a void. It's entirely up to you, but it's a really fun stitch. Let me bring it up really close, and you should be able to see those stitches sitting next to each other and securing that raw edge. So that's an eyelet. I hope that's not too intimidating. It is just an up and over stitch round the hole after binding it with a back stitch. So that's what we're going to play with today. Let's get creating something. Right, so I've got my aqua felt and I've marked my border in, and my immediate idea when I got footprint and aqua was a sort of beach scene, so that's what I'm going to do. I've got some organza ribbon here, and we're going to give our aqua felt a bit of shimmer and texture. So I've got a little bit of just regular machine cotton, and I'm going to gather this up. So it is quite delicate, but I'm going to use my running stitch to gather up the sides. So I'm just putting a loose running stitch up the side. I did wonder how we were going to get eyelets in, but I think I've come up with a plan. I thought about footprints in sand at the edge of the sea and wanted to try and recreate that if I could. So I've put running stitch all up the side. It just looks like one length of thread because obviously the ribbon is sheer, but then when I pull it I get some gathers. So we just want to ruffle this a little bit, and then when I'm happy I can just knot that off and trim it, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And because my stitches won't be entirely even, it won't gather evenly, and so I'll end up hopefully with a nice bit of ruching that is different from one side to the other. So I get a nice bit of texture. So I'm holding my needle still and just moving the fabric backwards and forwards, and loading it up onto the needle. Want it about the right size. So I can just layer that on there like that, and I'm going to just tack that in place. So conveniently the ribbon is roughly 7 centimeters wide, so it's roughly the width of my panel. Just want to pin it at the end there so that I don't end up with it being too short. We're going to flatten this out a little bit. So I've kept it fairly simple the last few weeks. This is a bit more like the Dawn one that I did, where we're constructing something of a scene, and you can't just have flat water. So I wanted to create the illusion of like waves or ripples in water. I'm just moving those ruffles so that they're distributed a little bit better. I'm trying not to think too much about this, just spreading it out, the ripples as I go, just so that it looks a little bit less regular. And I'm not going to worry about stitching across the bottom because I've got a different plan for that. Now, in an unusual move, I'm going to put it face down and I'm going to press it from the back. And what I'm hoping is that that will flatten out those ripples a little bit. So my border's going to disappear, but that's okay. There we go. I don't want to touch the iron too long on the ribbon because I'll melt the ribbon. Okay, it will get flatter because we've got some other things to add in. Right, we need some sand for our footprint. So I've cut a curvy line in just a scrap of linen, and I'm just going to place that over. It wasn't quite wide enough, so I'm just going to layer up another one. I want it to be predominantly aqua, so we just want enough space for our footprints, something like that. So I can pin that again. Just get some interesting angles. The layers of linen will kind of hint at ripples in the sand where the tide line has come. You can even use 2 different shades if you want to. So just going to use some running stitch along here. So just building up our base. So I've just stitched straight across onto my second piece of linen there, and then when I get to the bottom, just gonna go along the bottom edge, and I will stitch along here as well. I think this one's going to be a fun one. I hope it works. It's all very well to imagine something, but sometimes it doesn't quite work in practice, so I'm hoping that this one will work. Otherwise, this is going to be quite an embarrassing video. It's nice to think about paddling by the sea when it's quite cold. We have had quite a warm few days unseasonably warm here in Lincoln. Not sure whether that's been true across the whole UK, but it did get up to sort of 16 or 17 degrees the other day. I turned my heating off because I thought I was going to boil alive, but it's gone cool again now, so it's nice to think of sunny days and visits to the sea. Excuse my mucky fingers, by the way. I've been practicing the bit for the footprints, so I've got myself a bit mucky. All will be revealed. And we need a foamy water's edge, and I can't think of anything better to do that than some lace. Just going to trim these back so that they are not distracting. It's looking a bit scruffy at the moment, don't panic. Right, I've got a bit of lace here and I quite like that it's got little curves in it. So I'm going to just roughly cut around those curves. Like that, and these are going to go along the edge. Let's have this curve here. Just going to take some of that away. Again, I'm just going to tack those down. I'll spare you this bit because I think you've seen enough of me doing running stitch that's invisible. So that's how we're looking so far. So we've got some water, shimmer and some foam and a bit of sand. Got my little circle template here and we're going to put some eyelets in, and I want some of different sizes. And I thought this would sort of echo foam. So I'm just going to mark some circles. They're not going to show up fantastically well, but they'll give me a bit of a guide. So I just want some large and some smaller. And you can do as many of these as you like, really. You want to keep them separate from each other because you don't want them to spill into each other. These do need to be kept separate. You can't really overlay them, but you could put them wherever you like, really. So I'm going to create some bubbles and foam with our eyelets. So I've got my awl and a chopstick just to extend the holes, and let's bring it in some aqua thread. So let's start with a little bit of pearl cotton. I do like pearl cotton for doing eyelet stitch because it covers quite a lot of ground quite quickly. I will do some with some stranded thread as well. I've got some nice variegated threads that will work. So let's do one where you're going to be able to see it. So I'm going to do my little back stitch around the hole first. This is going to be quite nice because when we put our panel into the book, the white of the book hopefully will show through, and we'll add an extra bit of detail to our work. Now this is quite a big one, so I might actually cut it with scissors. if I'm brave enough. You can make these really sizable, and felt of course won't fray, so you've kind of got a helping hand from your base. You don't have to do these circular either, you can actually do eyelets any shape you want, but I thought this would work well for bubbles. So I'll do one on camera and then I'll do the rest off camera, and then we'll deal with our footprints. Okay, I'm going to keep my thread out of the way, and I'm just going to snip into that with my scissors, and I'll try and take some of that fabric away. You have to be kind of brave and cautious at the same time with this, because you don't want to cut those stitches that you've just put in, but you want to take enough away that your hole is going to be exposed. So this is where my chopstick comes in, because it's nice and chunky. A piece of down can work as well. So I want to just get my chopstick in to make the hole, and then I find it easier to come up through the hole and down on the other side of the back stitch. There's quite a lot of fibre to pull in here, so it's going to look bad and then it won't. So you just work your way around, making your little stitches to create that eyelet. And the tighter you pull, the wider your hole will be. Try and tuck your stitches right into the back stitch, and then you'll get an even eyelet. And you can always go around twice, so if I bring that up, hopefully you can see that eyelet starting to form, and even though it's all scrappy and fluffy, where I've stitched, it's becoming nice and smooth and clear. So that's going to be a nice big hole that will show through. I've got just a bit of white fabric here. It will show through the white of the fabric, the white of the paper underneath. You can also, if you wanted to, layer up other fabrics underneath. So you could get some darker aqua and put those in if you wanted to. I think I'm going to leave mine as holes, but this is a nice opportunity. You can just glue it because it's not going to be used, it's going to be displayed. So you could just glue a patch of another colour of fabric underneath and make more of a feature of the holes if you want to. So let's finish stitching this. So I hope everybody's well. Thank you for all your lovely comments about this project. I don't know whether I've said this, but I honestly didn't think anyone would go for this. I did think it was a terrible idea because of the sort of the potential for terrible combinations, but I'm so impressed by the way that you are engaging with it, coming up with exciting ideas. I love how many of you are not doing what I've done, but coming up with something of your own. And the whole point of this channel has always been to inspire creativity and get you taking some time for yourself, because I'm sure I've said this before, women often don't, and we do all the jobs and all the chores, we're on duty all the time, and we're not very good at taking time out for ourselves and doing something that just protects and helps our mental health and allows us to explore our creativity. And so that was the purpose of this channel, was to provide you with inspiration to be creative and take some of the fear away from embroidery. I think it's really easy to get caught up in all the rules and the precision and the right ways of doing everything. And I appreciate the rules, obviously, and I recognise that there are right ways of doing things, but I don't want to prioritise that over having fun with stitch and being playful and just experimenting and exploring. And so I think in ways that I could not have foreseen at all, this project seems to have really hit the spot. And I honestly didn't expect it at all. So I'm so grateful to you all for watching and commenting and sharing your work. Can't quite believe how many people are joining in. So and I'm really delighted that I recognise lots of names from past projects, but I'm also seeing people who are saying that they've never joined in a project before, they've never posted their work before, and that is an absolute joy. So that's our first little eyelet. Oh, I love it. I love it. I think it's going to work. So just to show you, I've got all sorts of threads here. So I've got a more greeny aqua. I've got some white. I know that's cheating, but there's white in there already. And I've got some nice variegated threads in different aqua combinations. That one might be a little bit blue. There is some sort of seafoam green in there that tones it down a little bit. And I've got some white stranded thread, but I don't think I'll use that. I'm just going to put in loads of eyelets like that to suggest bubbles and foam, and then I'll come back and show you how we're going to create some footprints. Fingers crossed it works, so I'll be back. Right, here we go. So we've got our eyelet bubbles along the shoreline, and now we need to put in our footprints. And I've got an ink pad. This is as close to aqua as I could get because I've made myself a little stamp. So I just folded a little bit of cardboard, and I did try cutting out cardboard shapes and it worked a little bit, but I was getting the corrugations of the cardboard on the print. So I've just put some glue over the top. I used E6000, but you could do this with hot glue as well. So just a sort of, I don't know, almost like a figure eight kidney bean sort of shape for the sole, and then some little dots that go down in size. Now this has worked on paper. So this has worked on paper. I'm hoping it's going to work on my fabric. Just got a quilting ruler underneath to brace the fabric, and I'm going to ink it up really well. So I'm hoping this is going to work, because otherwise I'm going to make it a mess. And I could do with knowing a bit more clearly where the print is, so I'm just going to trim it a little bit. Which I could have done with doing before I'd inked it. See, this is the chaos that I normally work in. Let's just get some more blue. I'm letting it go over all the colours because I don't mind what colour shows the most, and I'm just going to press it in. And we've got just about some footprints there. Just about. Might need to darken those up a little bit. So how am I going to do that? I've just got a brush pen here and I'm just going to darken those up a bit. I'm reluctant to use pen because the fabric will cause the ink to spread, but I think we just need that to be a little bit darker, like that. Oh, I am quite happy with that. Difficult to make a footprint shape with eyelet stitch or running stitch, so if we'd had some knots to work with, that would have been better. Right, I'm just going to trim this down. Okay, so here's the book. It is getting quite chunky, so it's a good job that this one is a flat one. I was going to do one last week, but this one lent itself to a flat panel much better. So what is the date? It is the 2nd of March. So 2nd of the 3rd, 25. And we're going to pop our picks in. So the colour was aqua. The stitch was eyelets. And our shape was footprint. So footprint not dominant in this one, but was the inspiration for our little beach scene. So there we go. Aqua, eyelet and footprint. And I cannot wait to see your creation. So don't forget to share in our Facebook group. The link to that is down in the description below. If you're sharing on Instagram, don't forget to use hashtag FSHWingingIt2025 and tag me at Feather Stitch House so that I can see your creations. If you've enjoyed this, please do give this video a like, share it with someone you think would enjoy it, and that's it for this week. Really looking forward to seeing your versions of this. And yeah, happy stitching. Have a great week, and I will see you soon for another pick. Take care, and I will see you next week. Bye.